husband stood frozen in the doorway, his face pale as fresh linen. A storm of fear and sheer astonishment swirled in his eyes, which struck me as profoundly odd. Usually it was me who dreaded crossing this threshold, steeling myself for another round of screaming matches or that heavy, glacial silence that could last for days. I just, he stammered, his fingers nervously plucking at the hem of his worn-out college sweatshirt. I could see a slight tremor in his hands. Wrapped things up early at the office today. What are you doing home? Weren't you supposed to be at your sister's until tomorrow? His voice had a tight, panicked edge to it. I slowly tugged off my rain boots, feeling a cold knot twist in the pit of my stomach. Something was off. Terribly off. The very air in our apartment seemed to hum with a high-pitched, brittle tension. Yeah, I was at her place, I replied, forcing my voice into an unnatural calm. We had a fight. The lie slipped from my lips as easily as a feather caught in a breeze. After years of this marriage, I'd become an expert in seamless deception. The bitter realization pricked at my heart like a needle. I decided to come back early, I added, locking my gaze directly with his. James nodded, but a shadow of doubt flickered behind his eyes. He shuffled aside to let me pass into the living room. I walked past him, feeling the heat of his stare burning a hole between my shoulder blades. The living room was submerged in a gloomy twilight. The heavy drapes were drawn tight, even though it was barely 5 in the afternoon. On the coffee table sat a mug of half-finished coffee. 2 mugs. My heart skipped a full beat, then began to hammer against my ribs like a frantic prisoner. "Have company over?" I asked, aiming for nonchalance and nodding toward the table. My own voice sounded distant, belonging to a stranger. James flinched as if I'd slapped him. "No, I mean, Michael stopped by. Just for 5 minutes. A work thing." I knew he was lying. Michael only drinks herbal tea, never coffee. And Michael certainly never carries the faint, sweet scent of expensive women's perfume, a scent that now hung delicately in the stale air. A heavy silence descended, thick and suffocating. We stood facing each other like 2 strangers stranded on opposite shores. 5 years of marriage, and suddenly a vast, seemingly uncrossable chasm had opened between us. "James," I began, taking a deep, steadying breath, gathering every ounce of my courage. "We need to talk." He turned an even ghostlier shade of white, if that was possible. His Adam's apple bobbed convulsively as he swallowed. "About what?" he rasped. His eyes darted to a spot on the wall behind me. "About us. About what's been happening." I sink into the armchair, my knees suddenly weak and trembling. James remained standing, leaning against the wall as if for support. He looked like a man poised to bolt for the door at any second. "I know you're having an affair." The words materialized in the space between us, solid, bitter, and heavy as lead. They formed an almost tangible barrier. James jerked back as though struck by a physical force. "What? No, have you lost your mind?" "Stop lying to me." I felt the hot sting of tears pressing behind my eyes. Holding them back took a superhuman effort. Enough. I shot to my feet. A torrent of anger, dammed up for months, finally broke free. Enough with the lies. I saw you and Amber, at that little bistro downtown. His mouth fell open. Something flashed in his eyes. Was it relief? Could he possibly feel lighter now that his secret was dragged into the light? "Sarah," he took a step toward me, hand outstretched. I recoiled. "You've got it all wrong. Amber is a colleague. We were discussing a project. On a Saturday night?" A bitter, hollow laugh escaped me. "Do you think I'm an idiot?" He dragged a hand down his face, as if trying to wipe away the mask of deceit. Damn it. Okay, you're right. We were meeting, but not like you think. I crossed my arms, my fingernails digging painfully into my own palms. Really? Then enlighten me. He let out a heavy, defeated sigh and collapsed onto the sofa, his legs seemingly giving out beneath him. Amber was helping me pick out a gift. For you. What? Our anniversary. It's in 2 weeks. 5 years. Had you forgotten? I blinked in confusion. No, I hadn't forgotten, but I was certain he had. For the last several months, James had been drifting away, becoming a ghost in our own home. I was convinced our anniversary was the last thing on his mind. A gift? James nodded miserably. I wanted it to be a surprise. Amber knows about jewelry, so I asked for her help. But today? Why were you so terrified when I walked in? He offered a guilty, pathetic smile. Because the gift is here. I was just about to hide it. I felt the solid ground vanish from under my feet. My God, what a complete fool I'd been. All the suspicion, the sleepless nights, the tears soaked into my pillow, all for nothing? James, The tears broke free, streaming down my face. I couldn't hold them back any longer. I'm so sorry. I'm such an idiot. He stood and pulled me into a tight embrace. Shh, it's okay. It's my fault. I should have just told you. I buried my face in the familiar cotton of his shirt, inhaling his scent. How could I have thought? But wait, a jagged piece of the puzzle refused to fit. Hold on, I said suddenly, pulling back, a new coldness creeping into my veins. The second mug. Who drank the other coffee? James froze. I lifted my head and met his gaze. The look swimming in his eyes was fear. The same raw fear I'd seen when I first opened the door. That, he stammered, his eyes fleeing mine again. Sarah, listen. I pushed myself completely out of his arms, feeling an internal freeze, a familiar icy hand squeezing my heart once more. James? Who was here? A sheen of sweat glistened on his pale forehead. No one, honestly. At that exact moment, a sound came from the bedroom. A faint shuffle, the distinct creak of a floorboard under weight. Barely audible, but in the ringing silence of the apartment, it was as loud as a gunshot. We both went perfectly still. I could feel the blood draining from my face. What was that? I whispered, my voice unrecognizable. James seemed to have stopped breathing. His face was the gray color of a tombstone. Probably the neighbor's cat? We don't have neighbors with a cat. I turned with a grim resolve and marched toward the bedroom door. My legs felt like they were made of poured lead, but I forced them forward. James lunged after me. Sarah, wait! But it was too late. I threw the door open and stopped dead on the threshold. There, in our bedroom, on our rumpled bed, sat a woman, young, undeniably beautiful, dressed only in delicate lace undergarments. Her long, honey blonde hair was charmingly disheveled, and on the side of her neck was a faint, telltale pink mark. "Hi," she said, offering a sheepish, awkward smile. "I'm Amber. I guess we haven't officially met." I turned slowly back to my husband. He stood with his head bowed, his shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the entire world. "Sarah, I can explain," he began, his voice a broken thing. But I raised a hand, cutting him off. "Don't," I said. My voice was eerily calm. almost detached. "I'm leaving." "Where?" James cried out in genuine panic, his eyes wide with a terror that had nothing to do with being caught and everything to do with consequence. "To my sister's. That's where I'm supposed to be, remember?" I walked out of the bedroom, snatched my bag from the floor, and headed for the front door. A white noise roared in my ears, as if I'd downed a bottle of whiskey in one go. "Sarah, please wait!" James scrambled after me, grabbing my arm. "Let's just talk." I turned in the doorway. I looked him straight in the eyes. In them, I saw desperation and, was that a flicker of relief? Had the burden of the lie finally become too heavy? "You know the funniest part?" My voice trembled, but I pushed the words out. "I actually was out shopping for your anniversary gift today." I pulled the door shut behind me, slicing off whatever pathetic reply he was forming. The hallway of our building was tomb silent. The only sound was the deafening, rhythmic thud of my own heart echoing in my ears. 5 years gone, flushed down the drain. 5 years of lies and pretense. I leaned against the cool wall, feeling my legs buckle. I wanted to scream, to wail, to march back in and smash every plate in the kitchen. But I just stood there, staring at a crack in the plaster. Finally, I dragged in a shuddering breath and forced my body to move. Each step toward the elevator was a struggle, as if I were fighting against a hurricane-force wind. I pushed out onto the street. A fine, chilling drizzle was falling. The sky was a blanket of low, bruised clouds, gray and utterly joyless. A perfect mirror of my life now. I fumbled my phone from my pocket and dialed. The ringing tone pulsed in my ear like a hammer striking the coffin of my marriage.
"Hello, Kate? It's me. Can I come over?" "Sarah? What's wrong?" My sister's voice was instantly alert, laced with concern. "Yeah, right now. No, nothing's wrong." I swallowed the hard lump in my throat. "It's just, it looks like I don't have anywhere else to go." Speaking of having places to go, if you're finding yourself drawn into this story, you should definitely subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss what happens next in Sarah's journey or any of the other gripping tales we dive into. I started walking down the wet sidewalk, feeling hot tears finally spill over and trace paths down my cheeks. They mixed with the cold rain, and I didn't even bother to wipe them away. The end. This was the end of everything. But somewhere, deep in the core of me, a tiny, stubborn ember glowed. Maybe this wasn't an ending. Maybe it was a brutal, painful beginning, the start of a new life, without lies, without constant low-grade fear, without looking over my shoulder at the past. I tilted my face up to the weeping sky. The rain intensified, but I didn't care. The drops beat against my skin, washing away the last smudges of mascara and, it seemed, the entire map of my former existence. Ahead lay only the unknown. And that was terrifying. It made my knees shake and my stomach clench, but simultaneously, it was exhilarating. It felt like standing on the edge of a great cliff, where one single step could lead to a catastrophic fall or an unimaginable flight. Well then, time to start over, and this time, to do it authentically. No more compromises, no more shaping myself to someone else's expectations, just being who I am. What would you do if you were in Sarah's shoes? Would you ever consider giving him a second chance? Or is some betrayal a final line in the sand? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. I clenched my fists and strode forward with a new grim determination. The rain was now a downpour, but I felt a smile touch my lips. For the first time in a very long time, it was genuine, because now I was free, and that was the best anniversary gift I could have possibly given myself. Soaked to the bone, but with a heart feeling strangely lighter, I reached the subway station. I descended the steps, the warm, stale air of the underground wrapping around me like an old blanket. I pulled out my phone to text Kate my ETA. The screen lit up, showing several missed calls from James. I hesitated for just a second, my thumb hovering. Then, with a decisive tap, I blocked his number forever. Swaying in the subway car, I caught my reflection in the dark tunnel window. Disheveled hair, smudged makeup, but my eyes? My eyes held a new fire, a fire of hard-won freedom and steely resolve. The train hurtled through the darkness, carrying me farther and farther away from my old life. The unknown awaited, but I was ready to face it head-on, because now I knew, whatever came next, I would handle it. The worst was already behind me. The doors chimed and slid open at my stop. I stepped out onto the platform and squared my shoulders. A new chapter of my life lay ahead, and I was utterly determined to write it on my own terms.